Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files. My name is Kelly, and I'm a foster with a rescue in the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania. And today we have a guest who does something a little bit different, but along the same lines of what we talk about all the time. I am so excited to welcome Dawn onto our podcast. And Dawn is the founder of Rosemary Farm Sanctuary up in New York. And I finally get to talk to somebody about every little girl's dream, which is horses. I cannot wait to dive into this with you, Dawn. So thank you so much for joining me today, especially since it's the week of Christmas and you've been dealing with quite a bit lately. So I so much appreciate your time and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I've been wanting to chat with you, so I'm glad we could find the time. There's always a lot going on here. I've learned that you bring yourself wherever you go, and apparently I'm type A. And so even though I moved to the country, I'm still filling up my days with things. So yeah, this is great. I'm happy to be here.
You know, I'm learning that a lot of people in animal rescue are very type A. I think like we are people that want to put ourselves out there. We're doers. We want to do things. We want to make change. And it just seems like that fits a lot of people's personalities in animal rescue. So welcome to the Type A Club. When I was contacted by somebody who you work with about possibly doing this interview, they had said to me that Rosemary Farms is one of the largest, if not the largest, equine sanctuaries in the United States. Help me out. I mean, is that close to true? Is that about right?
So I believe we are the largest equine sanctuary in the Northeast.
Okay,
That was very significantly different than a large rescue that might be in the West, because they've got more acreage there, and there are multiple amazing Mustang and wild horse sanctuaries out west that have several hundred residents and several thousand acres. That's not generally something that would be possible in the Northeast. So
imagine.
I know, just getting that many acres. Right, exactly, exactly. So I believe we're the largest sanctuary in the Northeast. There are some other rescues that are close in size to us, and the difference might not matter a lot to a donor. It really has to do with our mission statement. And when we were beginning rescue, which was an organic process, we decided to craft a mission statement that was something we felt we could uphold for decades to come. Felt like there was a lot of pressure to turn horses around and adopt them out. And I didn't feel like that pressure was something I wanted to add to our plate. Many of the horses we welcome are damaged mentally, physically. Some have never been trained. Others are bitter from overwork. And so the last thing I wanted to do was to create an expectation that we were going to be turning them around and sending them back out as, motorcycles for people. So we really adopted the name and the philosophy of being a sanctuary. We really wanted to make a space where horses could stay. And so we do adopt out. And there are other rescues that are focused on adoption, and that's okay. There's room for all different versions of what we do out there. It also may depend on the horse that you choose to rescue. And I know that was something that you had wanted to talk about a little bit. How do we decide who we rescue?
Right.
So,
But I wanna get into all that, and I do have some questions for you, but I wanna hear a little bit more about Rosemary Farms' origin story and a little bit about you and how, because I can't imagine that you don't have an equine background of either or raising or breeding.
you can imagine that now, because I did not have an equine background other than probably comparable to you and to many of your listeners. I dreamt of horses. I wanted horses. I wished for horses. I think that maybe there's a little tick mark by my name if there's a God who is orchestrating all of this, and I'm now getting every horse that I ever wished for when I was a child.
Oh,
I read every book. I dreamed. I was a suburbia kid. There was no horses in my easy access. We did not have the money for horses. I begged for lessons, got that 10-pack of English intro lessons. I was 12. And once I had enough riding that I knew I could manage, a trained horse, my best friend and I started going to a riding stable every other weekend, saving our allowance. That's all we could afford. And we would rent the same horse so that we could build a relationship with our horse. And I would try and stay after. So I booked the lesson that was not his first lesson of the day. It was before his break. So then I could start to convince the people to let me untack him and walk him around and spend a little time, a little more than my hour. So I had the dream, just like a lot of kids did. But I had a strong natural ability in the arts. And so my training in undergrad and graduate school was in the arts. And then you're deep into that, career building. And so I moved to New York City, which is the place where people go when they're building a career in theater. And I had a great career working as a set and costume designer off Broadway and assisting on Broadway, and got into doing Radio City Music Hall. And I was having a lot of fun. I was in a relationship and we decided to buy a farm. We found a farm on Craigslist. Own your own farm in the Catskills, I swear to God. And it just sounded idyllic. And when you're a designer, part of what you do is a lot of research. And I love learning. And so when you're designing a show, you research 15th century, you research those pieces, you research why they wore that, you talk to your director, blah, blah, blah. So I researched this farm and this area and this land, and I talked to a former owner before I even visited. And, we ended up being terrified. It took a while to make the commitment, but we bought this farm called Rosemary Farm. And then a horse was very close, we ended up purchasing 2 horses from our neighbor, and they were supposed to be nice, trained riding horses, and they were not. They weren't nice, and they weren't trained. And I learned a lot from them. And I learned that not all horses like to be ridden, and that training matters and your relationship matters. And I just wanted to be with a horse, like, oh my God, really? A real horse? So the horse I got was probably not a good fit, but we had a great, great time. And he just passed 6 weeks ago. So I had him for 17 years, and he was 6 when I got him. So he got to a good age for a horse. He had a lot of medical issues. So the more I started learning about horses in America today, and I learned that all these horses were shipping to slaughter. And I was astounded because to me, they were gold. What's going on? And I thought, well, I'm an educated female. I can go to auction. I wanted to learn. So I attended an auction, and I watched and I cried and watched and cried. People are laughing at me, and watching horse after horse sell to slaughter. And I'd made friends with one colt in the back. And I thought he was so beautiful. He was a little bay. He had a lot of chrome going on and some dark points. And I thought, well, he's so handsome. And he was clearly alone, and he was quiet. He didn't know where he was. So I was waiting for him to walk the floor. And we got to the end of the auction, and still no horse. Finally, they opened up these big metal gates, and it turned the whole auction floor into a cage. Big, tall, 16-foot chain link cage. And then they brought in my horse. He wasn't even trained to walk. And he was a stud colt. And he was probably a year and a half to 2 years old. So they're chasing him around and showing off his gaits. And they're doing the whole, look at this great horse, finish him the way you want, $500 starting bid, blah, 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 great bargain of the night. And people are yawning. Most of the people have left by now, and I'm watching, and I'm clutching this ticket and my Starbucks cup, and I'm watching and watching. The price is coming down and down. $200 to start this horse. This is going to, he's going to be the deal of the night, blah, blah, blah. And they're watching and watching, and the price comes down, and $100 for this horse. $50, take him home. $50, take this horse home. $5, take this horse home. And I'm sitting there, my heart's racing, and I thought, this is the moment. This is my moment. Like, this is the moment where, are you just going to dream about doing this, or are you going to help? What are you going to do? Like, we have those moments, and so many of us, especially if you grow up, I think in the Northeast, and you grow up with good education, and you're reading a lot, and you're dreaming a lot, and you're encouraged to think about those things you want to do. But how many times do we do it? Because it's scary doing some stuff. It's expensive. It's scary. You have to give up something to take something else. If you're going to walk that path, you're not walking that path. So finally, I was like, oh, I said, well, what's going to happen to him? And they were like, you want the colt? And I said, well, I don't have a halter. You want the colt? Well, I didn't bring a trailer. You want the colt? Okay, sold. They called him sold.
Oh gosh.
So I owed a colt for $5. The guy put his arm around me and walked me up. Now, later, I understood that some of their kindness was really that I had just solved a problem. Because they were talking. They said they're going to put the horse on the old man's ticket. I knew enough. That meant code. They break horses in a way that is, I consider to be completely cruel. They tie them to a post and flood them with trash, with noise, with water, with anything until the animal stops reacting. They break them. And I knew that was going to happen to this $5 horse. So I thought, well, I'm better than that. Like, I had a couple horses at home at that point. This was my first auction horse. And so they walked me to the office so that I would pay for the horse. Because once I paid for him, he was legally my responsibility. And they didn't want him. So,
yeah.
So then they're passing me around from all the old guys to who's going to trailer my horse. And they pulled a broken halter out of the bin and they put the halter on. And I mean, they were being very kind to me. And the auction house it's not their fault what's brought in to sell. It's their job to sell it. But it's not their fault that they have a whole bunch of wild, untrained, dangerous horses that come through there. So you try and remember that. And it was somebody owned the horse. I don't know who owned the horse before me. So we got him home in the dark, midnight, unloading this stud colt in my new farm that had no fencing and no lights. And we got him locked up in the pole barn below. And we named him Finn. Musical theater people, slap me a Finn, $5. So Finn, and Finn is the herd leader here now.
Oh, wow.
And so we formed a strong bond, and he is 18 now?
Oh, wow.
So Finn is the herd leader of the largest group here with Molly. I bought Molly less than a year after Finn at auction. So there was a lot of buying at that point because I wanted to help horses and I wanted to help horses that had no other option. And that's still the goal. So we are offered horses every day through email or phone. And I don't begrudge people asking, but most of the horses are private horses that live in a home somewhere that don't really want to leave. And most of them are seniors, and a lot of the owners are seniors, and they're, a lot of them are loving people. We encourage them to let their horse go at home where the horse has been happy. I have relented and taken some of those horses, and it's not generally worked out well. The horse coming here from a private home is confused. Where's its 5 p.m. snack? And where's its person? And the water's funny and the hay's funny and the other horses don't like them. And so it is certainly something I would want people to understand is that it's not even the right decision for every horse to come here. A horse that is at auction that has been neglected or abused, that is now with no one, that has no protection, that's the horse that we want to help. Yeah. And so to that end, we rescued 2 horses last Saturday from auction. And they were some of the very last horses that ran the floor. and they went for under $300 each. Because they weren't even, I mean, they're thin and old, so the slaughter buyers don't even really want them. And they're very good at calculating, the weight and the revenue of that particular living being. And so they're just not going to pay a lot for a thin old horse. And nobody wants those horses. So when we're able to go to auction, we like to help those horses.
Wouldn't those horses potentially also be coming from a private and it's just the auction is like the waypoint to get to you? Is that
Possible, but honestly, the people who are bringing those horses to auction aren't calling us.
right? But I guess my question is, where do you think that they're normally coming from, or do you not really even know?
They're coming from people who don't give a shit. They're coming from people who don't give a shit about the horse. They
Honestly, if there was an auction block for dogs or cats or birds, we would see that playing out in every type of animal, companion animal rescue we possibly could, because it's the problem is just it's so innate. It doesn't matter what animal we're talking about, really.
So, I mean, your question is fair. Like, where do those horses come from? And there are a lot of horses that come from rural farming communities that still use their horses for riding and driving. And the horses tend to be, in general, viewed as a commodity. And when they're used up, they take them to auction. There are efforts behind the scenes to make and build relationships with those communities so that they will surrender the horses rather than take them to auction. And we don't give a blanket no to everyone who calls. We talk to everyone who calls, and we try and determine the situation. And so if someone clearly has a neglected horse, it's just that a lot of the people who call are looking for heaven. They're looking for a line of costumed stable boys picking up their horse's poo and their horse running the mountain forever and ever. And those horses are if I can convince a kind owner to let their horse go at home, that's one less horse I have to worry about. I literally can't take every horse. Nobody can take every horse. Right. So I can't take a horse every day. And that wasn't why I gave up my life, in order to let people, especially honestly, if they're going to rehorse, if they were passing along their older horse, and those people will usually say they want to donate their horse because they think their horse could be great as a therapy horse. And the horse is tired. The horse needs to be taken care of and retired from work. So it's tricky because a lot of people just still view horses as a commodity and as a tool for their enjoyment. And when the horse can no longer serve that, it is still socially acceptable to sell that living being. And we, in our country, we do not treat dogs and cats the same way. If your dog was a fox hunter and couldn't fox hunt, you wouldn't say, well, that's fine. Let's sell the dog so it can be hamburger next week. So it has to
But
be.
instead, they just dump it.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
I realize that this is not an isolated problem to horses, but horses in this country are in a unique place. They are in between food animals. I do not eat animals, but there are food animals in this country and there are companion animals in this country. And the horse is in the middle, and it often falls in the legal gutter because there's very few restrictions on their care. So a food animal has a lot of restrictions on its vaccine records, and you track it. And dogs and cats have certain rules and restrictions, and horses tend to not. And so it just depends on the ethics of the owner as to what happens to that horse when it is again in need. And every living being has a life cycle. We're born, we need care, we need nurturing, we need education. And then in the middle of our time, we're carrying others and we're doing things. And then at some point we break down and we're in the end cycle. Who takes care of those horses? So we do as much as we can. And we are part of a community of rescues and we're all trying our best, but we're all always full. None of us take vacations. None of us take, things with families. We've given up a lot, and that's okay because we get something incredibly valuable back. Being with these horses is amazing. So
Yeah.
we do try and share that because there's a lot of people who are fans and supporters who want to hear those stories. They want to hear how wonderful the horses are and how valued they are by us just for existing, not for carrying us. No, just because they're amazing. So we're all over the place here. We're all butterfly here.
That's okay. So I love learning about this. I think it's what I'm finding as sort of this like point where a lot of different rescues and type of rescues are kind of talking to one person, in this case,
Right.
me, as I'm getting to see this unique perspective. Everyone in animal welfare has some of the exact same complaints. Like I was talking to someone who has a bird sanctuary, and she had so many similar concerns, especially about legislation and law about the care of these birds and the punishments for people who don't care for them, as it sounds like you do. So if we all need to come together and like stop saying, well, this is what I care about because it's dog rescue, or I care about this because it's cat rescue, or I care about this because it's horse. Like we've got to find a way to have this like universal companion animal or animal welfare system just in place that's going to be better all around. And I know that this is a total tangent, but it's just getting me really firing and thinking about that.
I guess I am not opposed at all to legislation, but I don't think this problem will be truly solved by legislation. And so our approach is to try and change how people view horses, to try and change people from the inside. If no one wanted to eat horses, there would be no market for horse slaughter. If they weren't the cheapest meat that is available to some industries. The slaughter buyers in the US, it's really a parasitic industry that purchases horses for less than they could raise them for, and then resells them in Canada and Mexico to slaughter. But that wouldn't happen if people didn't sell their horses or if people didn't want to eat the horses. So I am just every day talking about the care of the horses and trying to shift the needle on the ethics of ownership and care, and to make things normal that used to be crazy, like we do acupuncture and chiropractic for our horses, if we feel that it is what they need to help get better from something. We do not require our horses to work. No horse wanted to be owned. No horse asked to be owned. No horse asked to do the weird stuff that their owners want to do. And sometimes they really get into it. When we raise a horse and we start them under saddle, they love it. They really do. It's not like it's a hardship to carry us. And they actually get jealous of each other, like who gets to be with the person. And when you are working with any animal, if you think about dog training, and if people said, well, that's cruel that your dog is running an obstacle course, an agility course. That's cruel. Why is that cruel? Your dog loves to run. Your dog loves to do that. Unless your dog doesn't, which is pretty obvious. Your dog rolls over and says no. So, I mean, horses are incredibly athletic, and they're much more attuned to nature than we are, to sounds and energies and the earth. And so a partnership with a horse is amazing. But the other important part of that is their lifetime care when they can no longer do that thing that you like to do together.
Do you think that that's where some of the disconnect is? Like people tend to, buy these horses, raise these horses, and they have a purpose. Let's just even just say it's pleasure riding. Not even maybe showing or breeding or whatever. Let's just say it's pleasure riding. And they don't necessarily go into it thinking about what the other side of that looks like once the horse,
That's possible.
is lame and can't be ridden anymore.
I think there's a lot of people who like riding and not necessarily like horses. They like
That's
riding.
interesting.
And when they can't ride, they want to sell their horse and get a horse that they can ride. They like riding more than they like horses.
Right.
And that's pretty common. I have a neighbor, and I use her a lot as an example because she had horses when I first moved here, and I'd follow her around. I thought she was the coolest thing ever. And she had an old horse that had been her riding horse that she had retired a decade ago. But she didn't sell that horse. She'd never sold a horse. She doesn't sell her horses.
Uh-huh.
Now she took care of that mare, and she took care of that mare's granddaughter until they were ready to cross the Rainbow Bridge.
Uh-huh.
And she had them humanely euthanized, and she grieved, and then she was ready and got another horse. And she still has two other senior horses. And maybe a couple times a year she'll be walking them down the road, riding, just walking. So you can make decisions based on your ethics, even if you love riding. I love riding, but I don't need to convince anybody of that. I need to convince them that they need to take care of their horse anyway. And so many messages we get, I can't, I have to get rid of my horse because it can't ride and I can't afford it. It's like, okay, so you could afford it if it could ride. Well, I can't afford two. So really, then you try and just get them to at least start by being honest. Like, okay, so you really, your desire to ride is more important to you than keeping this horse, than the welfare of the horse. Well, I want to find it a good home. Well, how are you going to find it a good home if it can't ride anymore? The owner, no one will love the horse as much as the first owner. And so many horses are given away by kind people, and they really believe the new owner. The first long-term owner is not the one who brings them to auction. It's the second or third owner who has no investment in the horse.
How do you make a decision? Because you had mentioned early on in the conversation that there are some scenarios in which you will adopt a horse out, and then there are others,
Oh, yeah.
and of course, in which you don't. So, what goes into that decision-making process?
For us, adoption is a two-way street. So I can say that a horse is available, but that doesn't mean that the right person is going to come along for that horse.
Uh-huh.
And I don't want any horse here to feel like they're on a shelf. Well, you're just waiting for your person to come along to live, to have a full, meaningful life. And so every horse here is fully embraced as a full family member. If you thought about, like, say you had 100 siblings, right? And all your siblings lived in the house and they're all here. And then some, you know, beautiful woman or handsome guy comes along and is interested in marriage, but they're not going to click with everybody. They're not going to be the right match for everybody. So sometimes we'll have a horse and we think, well, that horse is not, that horse is not getting adopted, and that's okay. And then we'll have someone come along that we didn't know was coming. And then it's easy. Then you're like, oh, you guys really like each other. That's going to be great. Okay. And then it's like very, very easy to adopt when it's the right connection.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about what do they have to offer versus what the horse has to offer, to talk about, does that sound like it's a good match? Because I want my adopters happy. And then we talk about what do we think things are going to look like in 5 years? And what do we think things are going to look like in 10 years? And this horse could live to 30, especially with care. So let's just talk about some of the things that might happen. And so that they can start to at least imagine that longer future. And we try and make sure that they understand deeply that our sanctuary provides a lifetime contract on that horse. So they cannot sell it, trade it, give it away. They cannot breed it. They cannot make money off the horse. They can love the horse. They can enjoy the horse. They can do cool things with their new equine friend. If they run into trouble, they need to return the horse. And that's actually very hard for some people because ego. But I think the longest horse that was out was 7 years. And that was 2 horses, actually. And that was a family that, and the thing is, like, that wasn't a bad placement. That was a solid placement. But there was a horrible divorce. And that divorce tore up the family, and those horses were pretty neglected by the time we got them back. And another horse who just was never a match with the person, and she didn't want to say, and finally returned him. And we were thrilled to have him back because he was beloved, and so it's when a horse returns here, they know the land, which is huge for a horse. They are so attuned to their physical world. They know the land, they know the humans, they often know other horses because we still have some of the first horses we've rescued. And so they can reconnect in a way that's less painful. We can reevaluate the horse and determine whether or not the horse might want to go out again. And if it did, what would be the situation that might be ideal? So Heidi has been out twice, and both adoptions were solid placements, and both had truly bad things happen in the family, and they could no longer afford horses. So it was good for the horse, and it was good for the family that the horses came back here. But now Heidi's been out twice, and I can't explain to Heidi why things failed. So I'm not sure that Heidi should go out again. I'm not sure I should risk her heart again.
Yeah.
And also she's older now. Even though I've known her now 16 years, she was adopted at 2 different locations for most of that time. So in those situations, I'm not sure I'm going to let Heidi go out again, And it's not like we've got a ton of adopters knocking on the door, honestly. Most
Well, that's
adopters,
actually going to be my next question was how often do people reach out wanting
we get inquiries, but most people want what we all in rescue lovingly call the unicorn. They say they want a horse about 14 to 15 hands, under 10 years old, no medical issues, and dead broke. And we're like, yeah, we keep that one down with the unicorns.
Right.
We just don't have that horse.
Right.
We don't have that horse. Nobody has that horse.
Yeah.
Dealer, I mean, a professional dealer and trainer, a breeder might. Like, I love responsible breeders who take the time and raise their horses well and start them calmly, and they know what their horse is worth.
Right.
So those horses are not generally here. The horses that we get, there's 3 general categories. They're either not sound, not trained, or not willing. And sometimes they're missing all 3 of those. Usually 2 of the 3, So we get an enormous amount of adult horses that have never been trained, not even halter started, like nothing. And they've gotten to be an adult. So say you never went to school when you were a kid, so you didn't learn how to learn. You didn't learn how to focus on something. You don't even know that there's a question to be answered. Like, you just don't even understand. So these horses, if they comes to us and they're 12, 15 years old, we spend the time training to make sure that they're safe for us to handle. But they're not going to be started under saddle. Nobody's going to want a 15-year-old green horse under saddle.
Right.
So we put in the training to make sure that they're comfortable, they're happy. We can do their feet, their teeth, their vaccines. We can brush them. We can blanket them if they need a blanket. And we build loving relationships with them, but they're not going to go out for adoption. I mean, it would be rare. It's not like it's impossible, but most people want a riding horse. I wish more people adopted companion horses because as society is changing and people are starting to embrace this idea, it's a great way to connect to a horse. I've got dear friends that I've never ridden. We don't speak the same language. They don't speak English, but they're dear friends. And we have really great time together. And having, 2 horses, couple acres in the backyard, it gets you out of the house. We create, behind my house, I call it the outdoor living room. So there's a fire pit. We've got some lawn furniture out there, sturdy lawn furniture, and we let the horses out there. And we're all just hanging out. There's no agenda. And so horses that are accustomed to people walking up with an agenda, they're like, here's the buzzkill, and you're walking up with a halter, and they know you're going to do something. Here, they learn that isn't the case. I'm going to walk up and get this horse tensing and tensing and tensing. And you can see it in his jaw and his poll and his ears. And he's like, ah. And I go up and like, hold out my hand, little cowboy handshake, let him sniff. I was like, hey. I sniff back a little. I was like, that's it. See ya. So they're like, what? I think you just walk by them. Okay. It's great. It's so fun to help them start to realize that here they have a different relationship with people. We just want to be around them, and we are in charge. They learn manners. You don't take from me. You don't push me. I don't push you. I don't bite you. You don't bite me. I don't hit you. You don't hit me. We learn manners. And part of the way to learn manners with a horse is by listening first, because when they communicate softly, it's often missed by people. And so if you miss their soft communication, if you miss the little tension in their ear or their jaw or their mouth, if you miss that tension, then they have to say it louder.
So, Dawn, one of the things I was really curious about was how the farm actually runs. So, you're obviously a huge equine, rescue and sanctuary.
Yes.
And I was just curious, like, are you a combination of volunteers, all volunteers, staff? Like, how does that all work?
We are a combination of volunteers and staff. We like to use the word crew for everybody, just to talk about everyone together. I know that there are a lot of people who are anti-paid employees for rescues, and I think that's actually a little bit unhealthy at a certain point. I think that the work we do matters, and the work we do requires trained people, and it requires consistency. And so the model that we feel is most successful is a small group of trained, trustworthy employees who then supervise volunteers who come and go. And so that is what we do. And it's a balance to make sure that everyone is paid well and treated kindly, because I do feel that if we're going to talk about being ethically responsible to the animals here, we're also ethically responsible to our crew. And you don't want to be, pinching pennies when it comes to talented help here. So we do, in fact, have a small paid crew, and then volunteers come and go. And they tend to go as it gets colder and as there's holidays. So we see a larger influx in the summertime. We are a physical location that is a popular vacation spot for New Yorkers. A lot of Brooklynites here. And those people are busy and away in, like right now, when there's 8 inches of new snow out there. So I was out all morning doing grains and scraping some areas, throwing some hay, checking all the horses. And that's also great, because then I am directly in contact with all of our horses every day. And that allows me to better communicate really what this is and how amazing this place is.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask, because I had a hard time picturing how you would run strictly with volunteers.
Right.
And that's the beauty of volunteering, is that you can work that work into your life as you need to. But of course, for an organization as physically large as yours and as demanding as yours, you do need a sense of stability. You need like a stable foundation of people to be able to make it run consistently. So I think it sounds like you guys have found a balance that really works for you, which means it works for the animals.
We love volunteers here. When we have volunteers, at first they are not directly in contact with the horses. They learn how to do stalls. If they come back and they want to learn how to groom, we select a gentle horse and we start training our volunteers, mostly for their enjoyment, for their fulfillment in being here. But safety is absolutely priority. And we do have a very large facility, and we are driving hay around massive fields for herds of horses. And that's not something that you would want to volunteer to do right off. You want to train volunteers because their safety absolutely matters. The safety of all the humans followed closely by the safety of the horses. So I'm quite strict about gates and protocol, so that people are able to enjoy being here and know that they'll also be safe.
So that brings me to my next question. And I'm always curious about this because what you do is such a practical endeavor as much as it is a soulful one.
Yeah.
How are you guys primarily funded, if you don't mind me asking?
It's not a secret. If you want to look up anyone's funding, type in the nonprofit's name followed by 990, and you can find online anyone's revenue. Because we are a nonprofit, all of the funds that are donated, they're not for me. They are for the execution of the mission statement. So if you want to know what group you want to support, read their mission statement, look up their 990. You can learn a lot by looking up 990s. So we are funded through private donations. Many, many $5 and $10 donations, a few bigger donors. Mostly it is day by day people who connect to our mission, people who feel a resonance with the horses and our ethics towards their lives, our respect towards their lives, who want to see us continue. And it's just we are not the biggest rescue if you look up 990s, if you look up our revenue, especially compared to the number of horses we're supporting. So we're quite thrifty. We live in a beautiful location that is remote, and that means there's also plentiful hay, and our hay is not as expensive as it is in many places. And we just try and provide what the horses really, really want, which is first and foremost other horses. And they want space to move, and they need shelters, and they need access to water, which in the winter can be a challenge, and they need access to food. And with those basic components, they can have a very full life. And it's a beautiful thing to create and then just kind of get out of their way and let them be horses.
So I like to ask all of my guests this because I'm always curious about everyone's sort of top of mind thing. What is something that you want to put out there for however many people will listen to this? What is something that you wish people knew or wish people understood better, or you feel is a common misconception that you'd love an opportunity to address when it comes to equine rescue or animal welfare in general?
Sure. Well, horses are another species on this planet that we share this earth with. They are, in some ways, more sensitive than we are to the earth. They have better physical capacities. They can hear better. They can smell better. People sometimes think animals are dumb because they don't speak English. But horses are incredible communicators and incredible bridges for humans back to the earth and back to a simpler time when most people were more closely connected to the living world that we are in. And so what we're trying to do is to make some horses' lives right again who were wronged. So we are not a breeding facility. We are not pushing horses out the door again. We are trying to show what is possible with these lives, that once they are given some space, and how that actually can mirror our own lives. I mean, I'm on this little high this morning because I've been out in the snow and I've been trudging around and I've been throwing hay, and it's great for your body to be out in the world. We forget this amazing world we're born into. And for these horses, a lot of these horses here forgot, and some of them never even knew. I mean, we have we welcome horses that have never touched a tree. Can you imagine growing up to be an adult and never even touching a tree? Never seeing running water? We have horses that think that only water is in buckets. They're afraid of running water. They've been so removed from the natural world that they don't even know how to be a horse. So there's a lot of comparison there with a lot of people who become so disconnected that they don't even know what they're missing. They just know that something is missing. People with holes in their hearts, people who got little depression that's kind of always there, and they don't know why. And they don't understand that the world that they've been born into is the very tip of our evolution as a species and civilization that is not emblematic of how most of humankind lived for centuries and thousands of centuries. So our goal here is focused on horses, but of course we are telling a larger tale. And it's incredibly rewarding to see a horse slowly learn to play in water and to scratch on a tree and to be a horse. Horses that don't know how to talk to other horses. So we'll see cycles in them, and I kind of call it an arc. And sometimes there's a pendulum swing. So I'll use one horse, for example, a horse named Dimitri. He's been with us about 6 months, and he was purchased when he was 4 months old by a private human who was kind. But she had this horse and she had a mini, and that's all he had. And clearly they struggled to get along. And he eventually was given to a therapeutic center, which was not riding center. And they also were very kind, but they didn't know what to do with this horse. They needed him to do a job, and he couldn't do the job. And the job was to be haltered by strangers who didn't know horses and to be walked around and do things. And the point is to give those humans some confidence. But the horse didn't have the skills for it. And so he would say no more and more and more until they just wouldn't even try and touch him. So he was really in a gap because he was physically sound. He was not that old, but he couldn't even be touched safely. And he'd never lived with a herd. He didn't know how to be a horse. So Dimitri is here now, and he glommed onto one of our lead mares, a mare named Ella. And he's madly in love with Ella, and he has appointed himself as her sort of sentry. And he's overdoing it a bit now. So he'll tear after other horses viciously. Because it's okay. He's going to get over it. It's just a phase that we've seen over and over again. He's anxious to be useful. He's so happy to have a herd. He's so happy to see someone who looks like him. Imagine living in a world where no other living being looks like you. Even if everybody's being kind to you, nobody's got, say, even just your skin color, your hair, your height. Everyone around you's got 4 arms and you've only got 2, and you're considered weird. There's so many ways here that horses have become alienated through ownership and don't even know who they are. So Dimitri is going to be fine. He is becoming curious of us now. He's starting to trust us. He would be tense from nose down to his shoulder. He'd be a board, stiff board. And his nostrils would be tense, and his mouth would be tense, and his eyes would be tense, and he's waiting for you to try and grab him. So what we do, we don't try and grab him. We walk up and say hi, and then walk away. And he is astounded by this change in his life. And he's learning to run hills. People start treating horses sometimes like they're so fragile. There's a lot of jokes about bubble wrap and horses hurting themselves. And there is a tendency when you care to sometimes provide more and more protection. And sometimes, just like with kids, sometimes you can overdo it. So you've got horses that don't experience anything because people are afraid they're going to get broken. I've been on the mountainside and had 50 horses run by me in the dark while I am plastered against a tree. They don't hurt themselves at all. They hurt themselves on the fences. They hurt themselves in stalls. They hurt themselves on man-made stuff. They have tremendous capacity for living if we allow them the space to do it. And we can benefit from watching that and being a small part of that. So I hope that our volunteers enjoy a piece of that here too. And they learn to observe and appreciate, and then maybe also find their own ways to stretch themselves a little bit more.
I'm going to do something a little different today than I normally do because at the end of every episode, I like to do something called the Foster Spotlight. I mentioned it to you in an email. And what I like to do is I like to highlight an animal that needs some extra attention to potentially get adopted. But your mission is different than that mission, right? So instead of doing like a foster spotlight where I say, hey, this horse really needs to get adopted, because I was not aware of, kind of that mission where you're that's not necessarily the goal, the end goal. The goal is to make sure these horses have the best lives. And of course, if that does include adoption, then that's great, but it may never include that. Right. So instead, I'm going to, with your permission, because I had reviewed your website and I know all of your horses are on your website and they're pictured up, and it's really a beautiful way to meet the herds. I'm going to highlight Dimitri as instead of a foster spotlight, but just in this way of this is the incredible work and this is the reason that Rosemary Farm is doing what they're doing. And if you also believe in their work, then, please consider supporting them, even if it's just by, following you on social media, going, just sharing posts, raising awareness, that kind of thing. So I think we're going to do Foster Spotlight a little bit different and really just talk about how animals need us. And that doesn't necessarily always mean leaving the rescue that they're in, right? We can approach it differently if we need to approach it differently.
Well, we have a program called Stay Adoption. So a stay adopter pays a flat fee every month that is similar to like what someone might pay as a boarding fee, except that they don't legally own the horse. So the funds are fully tax deductible. And we ask that the person commit to that horse for life. So there's only one stay adopter allowed per horse. So it kind of becomes your horse. And it's a way to directly connect to a horse. We send out private updates. Our stay adopters are given a stay at our guest house every year. If they'd like, they're given private tours. Some of our stay adopters, so we have a dozen horses that are stay adopted right now. Excuse me. And we try and select a horse for the stay adoption program that we do not expect will be adopted or should be adopted. And so Dimitri would certainly be a candidate for that because nobody would want this horse right now. He's a little scary at times. He's beautiful, but he's really in his spectrum of recovery. And I expect that in another year he will be a very different horse. But at that juncture, the last thing I would want to do to Dimitri is remove him from his new family. So Dimitri is a great candidate for a stay adoption or for active monthly support at any level. The state adoption rate is currently set at $350 a month. And that covers all the basic hay and grain and basic needs of the horse here. If there are additional costs, the state adopter is not responsible for them. So essentially, it's a slightly larger monthly donation, but it establishes a unique relationship with a horse. And I would love to have Dimitri stay adopted. And when we have stay adopters for a horse, it helps us know that we have the basic funds coming in to care for that horse. And he, as I mentioned, he follows Ella around and he adores Ella. And Ella is one of our stay adopted horses and is a herd leader and is a special needs horse. So Dimitri is also a special needs horse, but not in a physical way. And because he is gorgeous and he is fit, he would be a horse at some other places that they might be really trying to push to get under saddle and get out the door. And I understand and respect that. But it's also one reason that we said yes to him, because we heard his story and we knew that we could give him what he needed here. So we go through a process with every horse that is presented to us to determine if we even have any room, and if we did, are we the right facility for that equine? And one reason that we may say no is that we simply don't have room, or we don't have room for their needs. So Dimitri does not need a dedicated stall, and actually he would fight a dedicated stall. I mean, he would really fight a dedicated stall, and he is a big, powerful horse. And he is safe here because he knows his herd family, and I have a strong relationship with his herd leader. And so I really rely on my personal relationships with all of the herd leaders to help navigate. And I trust them to have their herd in control. And so it's a lot of really beautiful relationships here. And that would be great if Dimitri got some additional attention and support. So thank you for singling him out.
Yeah. So I have a question, because this is where my brain goes, because I could never have a horse where I am or anything like that. But I mean, I just love them. There's just
Right.
such beautiful, wonderful creatures. So if
Right.
you're a stay doctor
Yes.
and you make your way up there,
Yes.
can you visit your horse?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
Absolutely. You can visit. If the horse can be groomed, you can groom. If the horse, it depends on how, it depends on where the horse is at their journey.
For sure.
But we make sure that our stay doctors, they're welcome to get photos with their horse, private tours with their family. I just sent out my stay doctor gifts for the holidays. We always send out something special. I won't say what it is this year, because in case anyone who listens and hasn't opened theirs yet. But it's really fun. They're very special relationships. Some stay doctors have never visited, and some visit regularly. So it sort of depends on what the person's interests are, and also where they are in the country.
Right.
Some of our stay doctors just haven't made their way here yet. But they get private updates. And because every life ends when a stay adopted horse is leaving this earth, I do reach out privately in advance to the stay adoption family. I see if they want to visit, if it's possible, and I let them know. And we have a private conversation about, the end of life. And many state adopters will then move their state adoption monthly amount to a new equine here. And so that's, we've got continuing relationships with people who are able to, because I realize that's a little bit of a nut there. Not everyone is able to, but it's just another way for people to connect. If they, like you, they can't have a horse, they're traveling a lot, they don't have land, whatever. Most of my life, I did not have land or the ability to have a horse. So I completely get it. I was in Brooklyn for over a decade, having a great life in Brooklyn, but I could not have a horse in Brooklyn. So making up for it now.
So I didn't actually look you guys up like on the map per
Yes.
se where you're at. So you reference Brooklyn a lot. You've referenced them a couple times just in this
Yes.
conversation. Where are you in relationship to New York City?
We are, Rosemary Farm Sanctuary is 3 hours, and they rolled away from Brooklyn. We are in the we are in the western Catskill Mountains. So you would drive north, and you would drive west.
Okay.
And so a lot of New York City has vacation spots up here. This has been a vacation spot since families were able to afford cars. So you drive up and you spend the spent August in the Catskills, where it's cooler and more beautiful.
Well, I mean, isn't that where Dirty Dancing?
It is exactly where, yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what I thought.
And there's lots of camps. There's family camps. There's kids camps. There's skiing at this time of year. We're just a little bit farther west than a lot of people go. But there is a growing community. So right now in December, you've got maybe 3/4 of the homes on our road are closed for the winter. And I know the owners, and we text, and, they're in the city living their city life. And when they come up, like there's going to be some friends up for New Year's. So we'll go to a New Year's party with some of our city friends. And that'll be a really good time. And we're leading a quite different life here now, but we're still connected. So for some, there's just something about a lot of Brooklyn that is on this area. I can't say why it is.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, obviously there's a draw. I'm trying to work the math in my head because my husband's a skier. I am
Okay.
not.
right,
And we are west because we're in Pittsburgh.
right.
And so I'm just trying to do the math in my head of how I can convince him to go up there so I can
That would be
see
great.
you and then he can go skiing and
Oh,
we
he
can
would
go
love
get
that.
fixed.
Yeah. So, definitely reach out. We have our guest house is on Airbnb.
Okay.
It is listed as closed in the winter, and that is because we want to approve any bookings in the winter. We have had guests who underestimated winter, and then we're doing a lot of caretaking. I wouldn't want someone in the guest house with a small child in winter, We just want to make sure that our guests are safe and that they have a good time. But certainly if your husband skis, then he would love it up here. Plattekill, I think, is the place that most people come up to go skiing. And so
Okay, I'm doing some mental gymnastics.
right. So you could stay at the guest house and you could do all of our guests are invited to volunteer. And our bookings at our guest house include a tour and include also a private grooming session. So it's we really try and allow people to be as hands-on as they desire when they're here visiting. And it's we had so much fun this summer. We were booked every weekend, and most of our visitors were people who were already fans, but a few are not. And we just had a blast. It was like a lot of really, really kind people who were just fascinated by this, weird mountain life that we're leading now. And it was really rewarding summer with all of our visitors. So I know that next year will be even bigger.
I am one of the things that I also can do is can put links in our show notes so
Great.
people can access information that's
Yeah, of
here
course.
throughout the episode. So do me a favor if you can, please send me the link so we'll out of your Airbnb
Yes.
because if it's closed right now, it won't come up very easily, and then that
Right.
way I can put it in. So
Yeah, that's a great idea. I will send you the link to the Airbnb. I
please,
can also send you the direct link to the Stay Doctor page on our website in case anyone is interested.
please, yes.
And Yeah, I mean, it's just I just love connecting people to this world. And we've built this beautiful, beautiful, weird little horse world up here. And it's the best. Our horses, most of them, I mean, they don't wear halters except for once every 6 weeks when they get their feet trimmed. And some of them don't even wear a halter when they get their feet trimmed. They're so tame. We've got an amazing natural hoof trimmer. He knows the horses. He goes up and somebody just kind of stands at the head and pets the horse, and he trims all 4 feet without even putting a halter on them. So as much as we can do here that just allows them to live a stress-free life as close to what they were born to be is beautiful. And as I mentioned earlier, I do love riding. We are not anti-riding or driving, but we want the horse to be also, willing and sound and trained for that. And then that's just another extension of your friendship. Like some of your friends you might go bowling with, some of your friends you might cook food with, some you might watch a movie with. This is you and your equine friend doing something. And your husband likes to ski. Some people are very physical, or some of our horses are very physical. They love doing stuff with people. Others have had it. They're very happy to be petted. They've got sore, they've got arthritis, they've got sight issues. They were overworked and they're traumatized, but they like hanging out. They like being with someone, and they like learning that it's okay to be with someone. So really, we're trying to give a beautiful last chapter to a lot of horses that were forced to live a life they didn't choose. And there's a lot of people who feel like that too. Like, they got stuck in a life they didn't entirely choose. So we're just trying to change the narrative by giving a beautiful ending. And sometimes that ending ends up being 10 or 15 years. We have our 15-year club and we have our 10-year club. We literally can't have a longer club because we've only been here 16 years. Yeah, but we have several of our original rescues. And like Heidi, who I mentioned earlier, was one of our early rescues, but she actually went out twice on adoption and returned for really valid reasons. And the placements were sound placements and they were loving families, but things happen. And so we have had some of our horses, we've known them a really long time. And that's beautiful.
Well, I want to thank you for so many things. I want to thank you for joining me, for dealing with some of the scheduling and technical issues that we've had through attempting to connect. I want to thank you for the work that you do. I mean, obviously, you are getting so much fulfillment out of it, but it sounds like you're just bringing something to these horses and to your staff and to your volunteers that's really just pretty special and wonderful. And I'm going to link a lot of the things that we talked about today in show notes. And as always, for everybody out there, you can find all of our episodes on Apple podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. You can follow me and see some of the horses that live at the sanctuary at Rosemary Farm on our Instagram page, the Foster Files Podcast. And if you have anybody else that I need to connect with that's as special as Dawn, please send me an email at the Foster Files Podcast is Gmail. And Dawn, thank you again.
Oh, thank you.
It's been such a joy through last, and I really appreciate it. So everyone, be kind to yourself and be kind to animals and take care. Thank you, Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely.